Hey everyone, it's Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 95 of my Metal Vault, where I will be exploring and showing you my favorite albums within the world of metal. As well as talking about the albums, I'll also be talking about the band, so a brief history and any releases leading up to the album that I have picked. And I'm going back to Switzerland for this episode. And of course, I talked about Celtic Frost, absolute legends from that country, with their 1985 debut to Megatheron. And so many more awesome bands have come from there. And of course, I mentioned Celtic Frost just now. The other one is Messiah, that I will hopefully be covering on here once I find their albums. And the band that I'm talking about in this episode started out as black metal and are now electronic industrial metal, and that is Samael. They did play Cosmic Void, playing this album and the first two albums before this, and I wish I went because this and those first two, I absolutely love those albums. And before I waffle on anymore, let's crack on with the album that I'm about to show you. So once again, this is Samael with their 1994 album Ceremony of Opposites, and just a brilliant album right here, released on Century Media Records, and just brilliant stuff right here. I will show the artwork in a minute, but let's show the CD. Got this cool image of snakes right here, a very like, yin and yang right here, and then we have the artwork here without the lights glowing off the case. Band members right there where it was recorded. And of course, lyrics right here. And the artwork that you saw of the snakes right here. So I got into these guys around the same time, maybe a year later after I got into black metal, because I was trying to find more bands within the genre, because I found Mayhem, Emperor, and Dark Throne. And I was thinking, there's got to be black metal bands from other parts of the world, so from Europe, here in the UK, in America, and yeah, like so basically anywhere around the world. So, and then obviously getting going back to Celtic Frost, I saw where they were from and I thought, okay, what bands are from there? So I found Messiah and then found these guys as well. And the song on here, which I will be talking about, is one of my favorite tracks, along with another one here because I'm looking at my notes here. So when I heard that song, I was just completely hooked with this band, and still gutted that I didn't get to go to Cosmic Void to watch them play songs from this and the first two albums, which I'll be talking about in a minute when I talk about the band themselves, Samael. So they formed in April of 1987 by brothers Vor and Zatras. And like I said, they started out as black metal, but I get a lot of death metal in there as well. So you can say they're black and death metal, and now play more electronic industrial metal. They are on the label Napalm Records, but before they joined that label and the label that this album is on, in 1988 they released two demos and one EP. And their first demo is called Into the Infernal Storm of Evil. It was an independent release. Not sure when in 1988, but it was released somewhere around that year. And it's a single-sided demo cassette, so the same tracks on both sides. And hopefully I can find these on YouTube and give it a listen. This one and the next one, which I love the name of this one, Macabre Operator, from the 15th of July 1988, and that is three tracks, so the same three tracks on the same side. One of the songs here is also the title of one of their albums. And then we got their EP, Medieval Prophecy, which has a Hellhammer cover on here, the third of the Storms, and this was released on Necro Sound. And when I look these guys up, they are still currently going. And of course, when you see style speciality, just says Samael, because this was the only band that they had on their label. And then we get to the year of 1989, which saw a split they did with Atrocious, Dreft, Hectic, Blatant Yobs, and Fungus. Those last two bands don't have a profile here on the Metal Archives, but the last three bands do. The first three bands, shall I say, do. This was released on Pneumatic Slaughter. I think I just butchered the first name of that, but it was released on that label, and their status is currently unknown, but they are based out in the Netherlands. And not sure when in 1989, but released either winter, spring, summer of that year. And then there was a compilation, recordings 88 to 89, which has the Hellhammer cover, which of course was on their last demo. And that was, again, no day or month of that year when it was released, but it was an independent release with the last two demos from 88. And then in 1991 was their debut album on the 1st of April 1991, Worship Him, on Osmos Productions, who are still currently going today, specialize in death, black, thrash, and doom metal, based out of France. And this was limited to 1,000 copies. And I'm hoping to find this one, and of course, then their second album, which I'll get to in a bit. But this was one of them I heard, along with the album that I will be talking about in full soon. And I'm definitely going to put this one back on. And of course, the second, because I have not heard them in such a long time, but they are absolute belters. And then we have their split, Triumph of Death, that they did with Carcass, Acheron, Beherit, Mortuary, and Death Yell. And this was released on Turbo Music, which has changed the name. And I don't think I can find the name. I think is, well, there's sub-labels of Brain Crusher Records, Turbo Records, and Turbo USA. And these guys are based out of Germany. So it was called Turbo Records. So now, then changed the name to Turbo USA, where now they're no longer going. And this label was based out of course, the USA. And Brain Crusher Records, they were that in 1992. And of course, Carcass is one of the bands that I have mentioned here on the series. Next one, their 1992 album released on the 1st of December of that year, Blood Ritual, on Century Media Records. So when they joined the label, and this was their first album released on that label. And again, belter of an album, absolutely love it. And this had their bass player Mass on this album. I believe he was also on, no, this was the first album he appeared on. I will quickly go back to Worship Him, and I think it was just them, just the two brothers. So Thor was doing guitar, vocals, and bass, and Zatras doing drums, percussion, keys. And I think it was just those two from the very beginning doing everything before then. And then their 1993 single, After the Sepulture, also on Century Media Records, of course, a 7-inch vinyl release, 500 copies. That's how much it was limited to. Not sure when in 93 it was released. It was a limited edition picture disc. Looking at the image now, definitely want to get it for my collection. You know me and Sean the Beast and Mark, the Bowels of Retribution, with Collector's Scum, we got to get everything. And then we get on to the 1994 album, of course. This was released on the 18th of February of that year, Ceremony of Opposites. And it is 10 tracks, but before we got onto the 10 tracks, so I mentioned their bass player, Mass, and of course, Vor did guitar, vocals, and wrote the lyrics. Zatras on drums, and then their keyboard player, who was in the band from 93 to 96, Rudolph, who, as a teenager, listened to a lot of music. So in 1987, he found his way into the goth subculture, so he was very much heavily involved in that and started playing synths from then on and composing a lot of his own music. He joined Samael in 1993, was on this album. Of course, their single release, which I mentioned earlier, After the Sepulture, and then he was on their 1995 EP Rebellion and the Black Trip video. He left in 1996 and has his own project, which is called RH428. And then for those who are on here, so we have Wild Mur, I think that's how it's pronounced. He's in a band called Despair, which is a technical thrash speed metal band out of Germany. And I have heard the name before. Don't think I've listened to their stuff. He was in a band called Enemy of the Sun. Live stuff, he is currently playing bass for Angel Dust, guitar for Exorder, guitar for what did play guitar for Overkill, and was playing bass for Therion from 2010 to 2011. Has done guest appearances, primary guitar and keys and bass for various bands, one of which is Rotting Christ, who I've mentioned here on the Vault, and there is Moonspell he's done stuff for, Therion, and Sentence, Tiamat, just to name a few. Music stuff for Asphyx, his own band Despair, Exhumer, Enemy of the Sun, name a few more bands, Unicoil, Moonspell, Morg from Germany, and then there's one from Sweden, and of course the one from the USA. And just name one more band. No, a few more bands. The Gallery, Tank, The Gathering, who I of course mentioned, Tiamat, and Unleashed, with their album When No Life Dwells, which of course I've mentioned here. And then we get on to Siggy, who did engineering for, of course, this album and a plethora of others, and did guest appearances for Therion, Tiamat, and Angel Dust. And of course, doing music for just sort of name that I was going to look at: Creator, Lunacoil, Moonspell, Morgoth for their album Cursed, another one I've mentioned, and Rotting Christ, of course, Samael's album here, and of course their EP for Rebellion, and their 2006 album Era 1, Sentence, Seven Witches, Sodom, The Dogma, The Gallery, The Gathering, Therion, Tiamat, Unleashed, Where No Life Dwells, and of course Shadows in the Deep. And then we get on to the layout of the album, which was done by Carsten, who was the guitarist in Morgoth from 1987 to 1998, and then again in 2010. Sadly passed away in 2018 of heart failure. He also managed Sentence and Therion. And I've mentioned before, metalheads that have passed away, they may be gone, but their legacy lives on. And of course, his guitar work on Cursed is absolutely brilliant. And like I said, he did the layout for this album. And then on to the final person. So to get back to the first two, so Walmer, he did producing, engineering, mixing, and Siggy was his engineering assistant. Carsten doing the layout of the album, and then for the artwork, that was Eric, who did their compilation for 1987, 1992, and the Rebellion EP, and a band called Vomitos. Never heard of them, for their demo in 92 and the EP in 93. And that's who did engineering, mixing, mastering, layout for the album, and the artwork. Now let's get on to the songs. So there are 10 tracks overall, and the first of which, so first thing before I talk about the tracks, and it's another one of those albums where the flow is just an even consistency, but it's heavy, it's dark, it's atmospheric, and it all starts off with track number one, Black Trip, which heavy guitar tone, bass, and drums, and then you got Vor's vocals, very much black metal bass. Obviously, they formed as a black metal band, but I did mention they kind of got that death metal edge to them in there. So the riffs sound very black and death metal. So again, you can say they're black and death metal, but the vocals are primarily black metal. And then you get on to Celebration of the Fourth, continuing on from where Trip started. Again, continue on that flow of dark, atmospheric, heavy tones, the evil sounding vocals, and the keys. You hear a lot of keys in this, of course, the addition of Rudolph giving it that atmospheric tone, and that's what I love about specifically atmospheric black metal, with the keys adding that much more dark atmospheric tension, and it does have that. And then continuing on from there, you got Son of Earth, another just excellent track, continuing on from the last two. Again, with the guitars, the bass, the drums, keys, vocals, all blended absolutely well together. And then Till We Meet Again, still keeping that consistent flow, still keeping that heavy tone of all the instruments, and the vocals still very much a presence there, and the keys very much present throughout this entire album. Same on the next track, you definitely, again with the keys, Mask of the Red Death, still keeping that foreboding tone. I don't think that's a word I've mentioned yet for when I talk about albums on here, and because it is quite foreboding as well. It's got, again, that atmospheric evil tone that I definitely like hearing in albums. And then we get track number 6, which is the track that got me into the band, Baphomet's Throne, which has that. First, you hear the drums, and then on the keys, you got him, Rudolph, adding the trumpet sounds to that, which is giving it all that sort of epic feel. So, like an epic style opening, all of a sudden just kicks in with some heaviness right there. And then you get on to track number 7. And along with Baphomet's Throne, this is another one of my favorite tracks. And this is where all the instruments are very much at the forefront of this album, and are absolutely complement each other. Flagellation, and then you get Vor's vocals again, and then because you get it right at the start of this album, of this song, and then when it's just getting towards the end, you get that, just like I said with Baphomet's Throne, it's got that epic style opening, and with that is an epic style opening and an epic style closing for that. And then you get track number 8, Crown, still keeping that flow, but with those last two songs, you definitely had that epicness, and it's literally carrying on from where those two left off with that style. You know, the vocals, guitars, the bass, the drums, the keys, like I said, very prominent on this album. And then To Our Martyrs, track number 9. And because there's a couple of tracks where it's like, especially with these ones, are because all the other tracks just full on, just heavy stuff. And these are still heavy, but kind of almost, I don't know how to really put it, but it feels like when he's doing like the vocals, he's kind of, I mean, he's full on screaming and just absolutely going for it. But in some ways, it's kind of a spoken word kind of thing. I don't know. I was just kind of getting that feel. It's not spoken word in any way, shape, or form, but it kind of gave me that feel. It's like, oh, we got this. Like, we got heavy music, but I kind of want to just do this kind of thing. But maybe that's just me. That's what I was getting from this. And then we end with the title track, track number 10, Ceremony of Opposites, perfect closer to this absolute beast of an album. And there's not much more else I can say about this album. And obviously, I do tend to repeat a lot of the same things that I've mentioned with all the other albums. But yeah, it's got an absolute mixture of vibes. So heaviness, so you definitely getting that strong black and death metal vibe right there, and of course within the music and the vocals, well, with all the music within Vor's vocals and Keys adding a whole another level to it because obviously their first two albums obviously did have Keys, but then it's not, of course, it's not Zaytras doing the keys. They obviously they got a member in to do this here. Kind of stumbling over my words here. Fucking hell, I'm stumbling over my words, and it is quite hot here in the UK at the moment. So just to rephrase what I was saying, so before getting Rudolph, of course, they always had keys, but then obviously it was only the two of them doing the albums and the demos. But once they got Rudolph in here, he was just adding his own feel to it. And yeah, he absolutely blended his keys with obviously Vor's guitar, Mass's bass, and Zaytras's drums. Yeah, just I don't know what else to say apart from it's a heavy, dark album. I've been saying that a lot lately, but it's definitely a heavy, dark, atmospheric album. It's just one that will get you headbanging. And if you've seen live footage of these guys, you can definitely tell, especially when you see their bass player, Mass, just absolutely going for it. And of course, it is a timeless classic. Absolutely. Of course, it's not in my notes, but a lot of the albums that I've spoken about on this series are timeless classics, be it if they're from the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. They're all timeless classics. They all got their own reasons for being timeless classics. And for me, like I said, it's a heavy, dark, atmospheric record. And I'm glad I came across their music video for Baphomet's Throne because I was like, once I saw it, I was like, these guys are absolutely awesome. I got to check out more of their stuff and finding the first two albums. And I've not heard much of their electronic stuff, their electronic industrial metal stuff. I may have come across one, didn't really think much of it. So really my favorite era of these guys is their more black and death metal stuff. So this, Blood Ritual and Worship Him. But if you're someone who likes all their stuff, then that is absolutely fine. If you're someone who's not a fan of this stuff, but like more the industrial stuff, again, absolutely fine. But if you're more like me and you're more into just the black death metal stuff, again, it's fine because everyone has their own opinion and like what they like. And for me, I just prefer more of the earlier stuff. And yeah, I think that might do it for this episode right here. And I don't know if I said it already, but it is an absolute essential for fans of this band. So going back to those who are familiar with this band but have not heard anything from their early discography, then if this video you've come across now and this is the first album that you have seen, then definitely start with this. Samael and Ceremony of Opposites. And that is it for this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching me waffle on and just stumble in my words as usual. It means a lot. Your support does mean a lot. And my subscriber count has gone up to 881 now. So it is going up because for a while it was going down. But thank you to all the new subscribers that have subscribed to the channel recently. Very much appreciated. And if you enjoyed this video and have enjoyed this series overall, 95 episodes, almost at that 100 episode mark, want to keep up to date with more of this, don't forget to like this video, share it around, comment down below, let me know your thoughts on Samael, this album, the first two albums, or just the whole band themselves. And don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with, of course, more of this, collection updates, Jake's Metal Chat podcast, more chats to do there. And I have been Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. Keep the banner of metal well and truly high. Please do take care of yourselves. And if it's hot where you are, please, again, take care of yourselves out there. And I will see you all in another episode of my Metal Vault.